Acacia, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on? We will both be on air today, but at different times when we're recording this. So it's nice that I get to see you and have like a little conversation with you now.
Just for a little while. No, we don't. We go an entire summer without seeing each other, but we
Yeah.
see each other.
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Yeah, I know it is. It's like I hear everybody's voices all the time, but I'm kind of on my own little island in the paddock. So I think I like saw Lafitte maybe once, and then passed by Greg in the hallway, and that was it. So yeah,
It happens that way. Well, speaking of Saratoga, one of my favorite parts of Saratoga is the lead up to races like this, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where we get to see these horses. We get to see them on debut. We get to hear the buzz all day, how it's the next fastest horse in the world. And sometimes it turns out to be that. We'll start with who I think will likely be one of the favorites, if not the favorite, in Chancer McPatrick, who the day of when he ran, Chad has this McKenzie, which we'll get to in a little while, that he really, really loves. And Chancer was outstanding in both of his races at Saratoga and then went on to win the Champagne as well.
he did. He's been really impressive so far. He's undefeated. You know, the thing about him is that he is a deep closer. So oftentimes we'll see the kind of these early 2-year-old races where a horse will show a lot of early speed, be on the front end, do it easily, pull away. It's very impressive. It's very exciting. But it's not often that you see a young 2-year-old overcoming so much adversity, you know, in just their first couple of starts. And so he was a little bit maybe further back than I think his connections would have preferred in races like the Hopeful and the Champagne. But I think that kind of the turn into the stretch of the Champagne really kind of showcases his ability. The way that he was just cruising past some very nice horses and just his talent, the way that his stride continues to lengthen as he gets more and more distance. He's gradually been brought along. I know that he's going to have to go the furthest he's ever gone in the Breeders' Cup. I'm not concerned about it at all with the pedigree and with just the mechanics of his stride. And Chad Brown's even said this. I mean, he's not this big, imposing type of individual, but he's just so goes out there, does his job, incredibly efficient, incredibly balanced, and he's been a lot of fun to watch.
Well, he's bucking the trend of the, and I know we've done that piece about names, about silly names. Usually silly named horses don't end up being multiple grade 1 winners in the favorites for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. But you mentioned McKenzie. I wish I would have got that lottery ticket at the beginning of the year. McKenzie's going to win 3 grade 1 2-year-old races in New York as a stallion. He's off to an outstanding start. He's got another runner in here as well, McKenzie Street.
He does. He's also the sire of Scottish Lassie, who won I'm blanking on the name of the Frizette.
Yeah,
I was like, they all start to blur together at some point for Jorge Abreu. And she is the same kind of thing. You know, she's a big and leggy type, but just that long, fluid stride. And I think that, you know, when I spent a lot of time at the sales, as we've talked about, you know, and they were so highly regarded early on at Saratoga in the summers, and even going into the 2-year-old sales, the progeny of McKenzie, but they weren't kind of that really early and precocious types like maybe Vekoma was right off the bat. And so I think that there was a little bit of doubts about how good McKenzie might have been. But then as you see them start to get some more distance, you just see how talented his progeny really are. And with some of those top 2-year-olds going into the Breeders' Cup, just really showcases it. Even just with the Champagne and Frizette, both grade 1 2-year-old wins won by an offspring of McKenzie. Really, really impressive for a freshman sire.
Well, not to usually there's a West Coast opponent who people are going to highly fancy against the East Coast one, but now it's just kind of a Midwest horse in East Avenue who was very impressive in that Breeders Futurity. I know you haven't seen him in the flesh, but you did get to see him on your TV screen.
I did. I'm looking forward to getting a chance to get a good look at him. And I like his name as well. I call East Avenue home. So it's a horse that has come along and was very impressive winning the Futurity. But I think that there are a few questions that you have to ask. Was it kind of, they went 1-2 around? I did not watch every race at Keeneland that day, but from some of the things that I've seen, it did seem like being inside speed was a real benefit on that card. So I think as you start to go deeper and deeper into the handicapping, that's something to ask. Holding off Ferocious, who obviously had huge high hopes for him going into Saratoga, one of the most impressive maiden scores we saw in Saratoga Saratoga, and then running behind Chancer McPatrick and the Hopeful as well. So those two horses coming out of the Keeneland race, I think, are ones that you have to look at and dissect. Can you make any excuses for Ferocious, excuse me? And can you find any knocks against East Avenue where you feel like he might have had a little bit of an easier trip? Or is he just that good and getting good at the right time? He's one that's been very impressive. I certainly can't knock him, but I do think that this is going to be the biggest test for him yet.
Well, I'm trying to convince myself that Ferocious, whose name I always get confused with Fierceness, could do what Fierceness did last year, which is have a sensational debut, kind of flounder, and then come back and run off the screen in the Breeders' Cup. Being a $1.3 million horse, I want you to tell me how beautiful he is so I can kind of get excited about him again.
JK, he's stunning. He's just, I mean, he's so beautifully put together. He was no surprise with that price tag, one of the top 2-year-old colts at the OBS sale, where he sold for $1.3 million, consigned by Becky Thomas, his sequel, and it just has that lovely pedigree. The dam being the sister to obligatory Grade 1 winner. There's a lot of Juddmonte, the strength in the female family, which is always something that you look for, that quality, that depth. And then when he walked into the paddock first time out, I looked over at Gustavo Delgado Jr., Gustavo Delgado's son and assistant, and I said, wow, he's really grown and filled out even from the 2-year-old sale. And he goes, oh yeah, and there's a lot more to do. I mean, he just has that size, he has that scope, the way that he's put together. It's easy to start drooling over him a little bit. I think for Maggie Wolfendale and I, we felt kind of the same thing, that he is that kind of physical specimen that you like to see, whereas Chancer McPatrick is not. I mean, he's well put together, but he's not one that's immediately going to grab your attention to the paddock like Ferocious is.
Well, I mean, obviously those are probably the 3 main contenders. I mean, Jonathan's Way and Phil Bauer probably deserve at least a mention, who are going in the right direction as well. So I'm hopeful that my namesake has nothing to do with me at all, but it's spelled differently and everything. But if he wins, I will claim it.
I do not blame you at all, and I absolutely think that you should. I thought he had a dazzling maiden win at Saratoga. I know it wasn't, kind of the one that was most talked about with the likes of Ferocious and Chancer McPatrick, but I think that's in large part because he didn't stay, he didn't run in the Hopeful, so we weren't kind of talking about him as much in Saratoga. But I thought his maiden win was really impressive, and he's gone on to do some really good things for Phil Bauer. He's a talented horse that should not be overlooked.
Well, Keisha, I better get on this A train so I can get there in time for this Blood Horse preview.
Well. Better you than me.
I'll see you later. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
TwinSpires.com are back in the tournament game. You can play the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge through TwinSpires.com, and you can also start trying to qualify for horse racing's latest major tournament, the 2025 Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge. Go to TwinSpires.com and click the Tournaments tab.